Imagine the Aegean at dawn in 334 BCE. Ropes tighten on holes, oars lift, and a young king scans a gray horizon. On the opposite coast, a messenger rides into a Persian port and reads a single, austere order. Do not meet him in open field. Close the harbors. Feed the fleet. Make the sea his enemy. No miracles, only discipline. What if that choice, not a prophecy, not a heroic duel, kept an empire from breaking? This is a narrow path. We remain inside Achaemenid Persia, the royal road from Sardis to Susa, the daric that pays soldiers and sailors, Aramaic scribes copying the same command into 10 scripts, Phoenician shipwrights hammering planks in Sidon and Tyre, cavalry that can ride for days, horse archers that can empty a quiver at a gallop. We follow the fractures that history left open and the smallest fixes that could have sealed them. If rigor and restraint are the kind of histories you want to hear, subscribe to What If? Wars for More. In 343 BCE, Artaxerxes III reconquers Egypt, a clean reconnection of revenue, grain, and prestige. In 338 BCE, he dies, and the court turns to whispers and knives. In 336 BCE, Darius III takes the throne, capable, but already encircled by men who imagine themselves kingmakers. Ambiguity at the top radiates hesitation downward. When princes and patrons can still change the ending, every satrap waits before he moves. The satrapy system is the empire's reach and its risk. Governors levy tax, raise troops, and keep order. Distance turns oversight into parchment. Tax farming multiplies middlemen, and silver evaporates with every hand it touches. A delayed payroll produces a sloppy port, a thin garrison, and a captain who cuts corners because the timber shipment never arrived. Leakage at the periphery becomes weakness at the core. At sea, Persia owns harbors and expertise through its Phoenician fleet. But the navy does not breathe as one. Doctrine shifts by coast. The chain of command stops at provincial boundaries. Against an opponent that has learned to be amphibious, Macedon's lean fleets shadowing its armies, an uncoordinated navy fights a land war with boats. Logistics are elegant and partial. The royal road carries orders at astonishing speed from Sardis to Susa, riders trading horses in a rhythm that astonishes foreign envoys. But roads are arteries without the coastal hearts that keep the blood moving. Grain depots in harbor, standardized cordage in warehouses, convoys that sail by clock, not whim. When crisis strikes, speed is a letter that arrives before the supplies it commands. Beyond the empire's frontiers, Greek interstate politics tilt. Between 346 and 336 BCE, Macedon learns how to fracture alliances, how to sponsor friends and harass enemies, how to keep Thebes and Athens out of sync. Persia sends embassies, pays Greek mercenaries, and meddles as it always has. But durable anti-Macedonian blocks do not hold. Alexander inherits both an army and a network. Then the sequence falls like stones into a well. Granicus, 334 BCE, Essus, 333 BCE, Tyre, 332 BCE, Gaugamela, 331 BCE. The empire's strengths, cavalry, horse archers, bureaucratic reach, coinage, remain real, but they operate through systems that stall at the moment they should synchronize. The result is not inevitable, only fast. Between 340 and 334 BCE, small decisions could have closed the cracks that speed turned into crevasses. Succession first. The crown names a single heir in life and binds that choice through a revived council of the 7 noble houses. The oath is public, copied in Aramaic and local scripts, dispatched to Sardis, Babylon, Susa. Palace guards rotate by calendar, their commissions tied to the council rather than to a faction. Darius III accepts constraint so that his orders will travel intact. This is not romance. It is insurance against the kind of court coup that pauses an empire at the worst hour. Money next. A triennial roving inspectorate appears without warning in the richest satrapies. Ledgers are bilingual, so no foreman hides behind translation. Tax farming layers are capped by law. Treasurers rotate on a predictable Sardis-Babylon-Susa triangle. A one-time disclosure amnesty lets lesser thieves come clean and start over. Thereafter, penalties are public and ruthless. The daric still glitters, but fewer hands touch it on the way to the harbor wall. Sea power becomes doctrine. Memnon of Rhodes receives a single writ of unified command over the Phoenician fleet and coastal satraps. He does not promise victory, he promises tempo. Ports stockpile tar, sailcloth, cordage, and grain. Convoys move on schedule. Admirals stop fighting in local pride and start fighting an Aegean war of denial. Island raids, smashed depots, captured tenders. Memnon's insight holds: do not break Alexander in a day. Break his supply over seasons. The field army evolves by subtraction. A standing course pairs horse archers and armored cavalry with compact torsion artillery, detachments that exist to break phalanx cohesion before it can bite. Commanders are measured not by speeches, but by the discretion to refuse battle when the coastline is not friendly. Retreats become tools, not sins. The royal road grows fingers into the sea. Courier depots extend to Halicarnassus, Sidon, Tyre, Memphis. Sealed tokens authorize the release of grain and naval stores to any officer carrying the right mark. Port satraps are bonused for surplus deliveries, fined for shortages. An order from Susa can now unlock bread in Memphis in days, not weeks. The horse and the sail finally live in the same calendar. Finally, Greek leverage is priced in oaths, not moods. Persia offers Thebes and Athens subsidies stapled to formal oath alliances. Year-round harbor access. Harbor garrisons paid by Persia. And a sacred promise that no Macedonian troops will winter behind their walls. Break the oath and lose the silver. Keep it and keep the schedule. It is cheaper and steadier than buying masses of mercenaries whose loyalty ends with their rations. Each measure is mundane, feasible, and timed for 334 BCE. Each assigns a name. Darius III signs the succession writ. The council publishes the guard's rotation. Inspectors carry seals. Memnon requisitions holes. Coastal satraps lay up rope and grain. Athenian and Theban envoys sign oaths in ink that will not fade when summer ends. Granicus, 334 BCE. Persia does not arrange a proud line on the treacherous riverbank. Cavalry harry, then fall back toward friendly coastlines. Macedonian columns find the near shore stripped, bridges burned, wells spoiled, villages moved inland. Foragers chase shadows. The decisive ground is denied, postponed, diluted into miles of hostile coastline. Memnon's fleets press into the Aegean. Islands that should be Macedonian pantry shelves become tinder. A night fire in a depot. A captured transport near Thrace. A grain convoy forced to turn back by the sight of Phoenician prows. Nothing fatal. Everything cumulative. Macedonian paymasters add columns of unplanned costs. Esus, 333 BCE, does not quite happen. Skirmishes do. Horse archers soak shields with arrows and retreat before contact. Small torsion engines spit bolts into tight ranks and then are gone behind a ridge. When Memnon dies in 333, as he did in our world, the writ of unified command does not die with him. It passes to a board of named Phoenician admirals with orders written plainly enough to survive any single voice. Tyre, 332 BCE, becomes the hinge. In reality, it fell after a spectacular siege. Here, concentrated Phoenician fleets remain supplied and paid. The island's heartbeat never falters. Ropes replaced before they snap. Ballast shifted. Crews rotated with pursers counting darics that do not bounce. Alexander can still build a mole. He can still batter walls. But the calendar is against him. Wintering costs rise. Allies in Greece reconsider their enthusiasm for an endless campaign. Revenue from Macedonian mines and satrapies faces a sea it does not command. Persia does not shout triumph. It whispers terms. Darius III offers recognition of Macedonian holdings, where they can be fed and garrisoned without threatening the core, in exchange for acknowledgement of Persian control in the heartlands and seasonal access to certain ports under oath. Bargain, not surrender. Endurance, not reversal. Alexander might refuse, but refusal now costs months instead of days, ships instead of speeches. The aim is not to break the invader. The aim is to slow him until the math reverses. When the math reverses, even the bold negotiate. Inside the empire, the changes feel like competence, not drama. The Daric's reliability touches everyday things. Sailors paid on the same day each month. Cavalry remounts purchased before campaigns begin. Grain bought in peace, stored in port, and issued with a token. A steady payroll lowers theft, and lower theft keeps walls manned and ships seaworthy. Satrapal behavior shifts when inspectors may appear unannounced, and treasurers rotate by law. Governors still matter, but fewer play at being kings because their ledgers are legible from Susa and Sardis. When a village complains, a courier arrives with orders written in Aramaic that cannot be massaged by a local scribe. Relief follows within the week. Skeptics who used to wait to see who is truly king now find the empire arriving, literal as a stamp in wax. Legitimacy grows in the quiet places. The empire returns to the grammar of Cyrus the Great. Respect temples, fund roofs, allow local rights. Zoroastrian ethics color imperial language without drowning cities in zeal. Priests in Babylon and Memphis bless a king who fixes leaks and pays masons. It is not love, it is preference for order over improvisation. Administration becomes the invisible muscle. Because Aramaic is everywhere, orders spread as patterns, not surprises. The royal road reaches deeper into ports. The rider's arrival means not merely news, but access to stores. Crisis response shortens. The empire stops lurching and starts pacing. A decade later, then two, Persia holds as a commercial logistical hegemon around the eastern Mediterranean and the Near East. It does not push for the Adriatic. It does not dream of the Atlantic. It tends harbors, roads, treasuries, and oaths. Bactria may flare, the Caucasus may smolder, but the core does not take on fuel. Macroeconomics replaces theater. The borders on the map look familiar. The rhythms behind them do not. If Memnon dies in 333 BCE, continuity holds because doctrine sits in an office, not a single man. Named Phoenician admirals execute convoy schedules already funded and stocked. The blockade thins, but does not break. If Greek subsidies falter, Persia pivots to an Egypt-Levant customs union within its own territories, pooling tariff revenue to pay harbor garrisons automatically. Athens may hesitate, Tyre and Memphis do not. If Bactria rebels, cavalry rotates east by timetable and eats from grain reserves laid along the royal road, controlling the fire without stripping villages or panicking treasuries. None of these responses guarantee calm. They create margins where panic once lived. First, clarity beats charisma. A named heir affirmed by a council makes the empire's voice coherent when it matters. Second, logistics and sea power govern tempo. Armies win afternoons. Fleets and ledgers win years. Third, clean tax lines buy patience. A soldier paid on time listens longer. A harbor that knows its budget does not guess with rope and sail. Return to the Aegean dawn. The ships and the wind are the same. What changes are choices: to refuse an early field, to place doctrine above bravado, to push the royal road into piers and warehouses, to elevate Memnon's attrition into policy, to tie Greek politics to oath alliances rather than to moods, to rotate treasurers before temptation becomes habit. In this narrow corridor of 334 BCE, those choices could plausibly have traded spectacle for stamina and crisis for calendar. No empire is eternal, but the Achaemenid state could have lasted longer. Long enough that Granicus, Issus, Tyre, Gaugamela turned from a sprint into a negotiation. Stability, not expansion, becomes the measure of success. If histories that hold tight to the possible speak to you, subscribe to What If? Wars for the next question asked with the same restraint.